Lesson 16. Truth is steadfast, immovable. To receive this teaching you must exclude the vibrations of inharmonious personalities. It is highly injurious to allow an invasion of magnetic currents. This causes exhaustion and want of vitality. Keep perfect poise of spirit, never allowing any influence to enter the spiritual innermost while sensitive and receptive. Try to help people to their own indwelling spiritual wealth, and do not imagine that it is the right thing to help them of yourself. It is a far higher to help others to help themselves, leading them to the true source of all good. I suggest that you do not allow any but yourself to open the door of communication between yourself and us. You all need to remember your own right to rule in every condition and circumstance. Let us consider together the meaning of the personal and of the universal, for there is much confusion of thought in your midst about these things. Jesus was both a spiritual, personal identity and the Christ of God. This is God's meaning for you, with Jesus, the divine teacher, for your guide. Jesus, the Christ, became one with God when one with man. Only by withdrawing himself from their midst as a personality could he really come again to his disciples in that interior sense, which was to make of these ordinary men the great apostles of the Christian church. Only by entering into the universal could he become the true individual in them and in us all, the you, the I am of our life and theirs. In that wonderful chapter of the Acts, you may find the record of their first glimpse of the great cosmic consciousness, the inner illumination which will cover the whole earth as a water covers a sea. They emerged from the limitations of time and sense into a larger spiritual freedom. Their loss of the personality of Jesus was their great gain of the Christ all in all. You are to become one with all men, a great brotherhood and divine unity. The words will surely reveal the truth. At present this consciousness is dawning. Surely we see the coming unity of man with man and God. You will in no sense be less yourself, but you will be greater in love and understanding. The suffering of some is the hurt of the whole. How beautiful are the feet of those who carry the tidings of peace and goodwill toward all men. Silently working in the heart of the nation is the Prince of Peace. We pray for open doors, that the great interior life may flow out and expand, the very river from the Ancient of Days. There is perpetual healing wherever the river cometh. Rest and hope, be strong, and of good courage. The day is coming, the night is past. In the darkest and the outermost hell is God. There are planes below yours, some even unconscious of God, but all shall be redeemed. Every time you make a conquest on the material plane, you make better conditions for those below you. I repeat, every individual conquest is a victory for the whole race. Pray often and love much. Do not falter on the upward path, for when you fall, others fall with you. Thank God for your glorious opportunity here and now. Read the Sermon on the Mount continually, and wait silently as the words unfold their meaning to you. Lesson 17. Imagination. The body is the covering and the garment of the spirit, and you are learning that spirit is ruler. At first you may not see results, but the work begins the instant you function from the spiritual plane. Do not be discouraged, as I was, at not seeing results. I see now that the work of healing was going on even when things seemed at their worst. You will thank God for the darkness and the struggle. You will prove their real friendliness. Christ's work in you is to proclaim liberty to captive souls, the opening of prison doors to them that are bound. Your body will be the most beautiful garment of the Spirit, for salvation is not in part but wholly. You ask, what is thought? Perhaps you have missed the true understanding. Thought is a creative process behind all phenomena. It is not a mental concept, though it finds its avenue through the mentality. The thought is never separated from the thinker. The worlds, with all their myriad forms and nature, are thoughts expressed by the Absolute. You are God's thought, and so you also manifest love. At the very heart of life, both universal and individual, is the wellspring of growth from which all true life evolves. It is the only one, the first cause of all, never outside its own creation, but self-existent, inseparable from itself. ever making for perfection and peace. This self of life is sending out rays of intelligence through its many channels, outpouring itself in infinite variety, but always one. The great outer enemy, the senses, would pervert, making separation even of the expressed being until, as a result of ages of ignorance, man has dared to think of himself as a complete and separate identity, looking on the suffering of humanity as something outside himself, looking on God as afar off. God requires outflow from the great central life. This is a law steadily working itself out in the teeniest detail on your earth life. Your planet holds within it fire, water, and minerals of untold wealth, but it also holds a great invisible interior spiritual force, creative, reconstructive. This is thought, the outcome of the one life, breathing through stone, rock, and densest matter. Man limits himself by his mental process and hinders the upspringing of the divine thought we see from our side. Man gets a glimpse of a truth. He immediately begins to make it concise, gives it a form, clothes it by the mental process called reasoning, thus himself closing the avenue by separation from the whole. No truth is apart. There is but one truth. No man can hold all the truth. This is a work for all time. You would do well to unfold the capacities for receiving by clearing the mind of limitations, beliefs that have become bondage, and by becoming even as a little child. Otherwise you cannot enter the kingdom. We see so much spiritual force imprisoned behind the closed mental doors. The Spirit of God quickens the intellect, for it becomes enlightened by the true light, open out to this hidden spiritual life, as the flower is nourished into full bloom by its own hidden sources. Consider well the flowers of the field. They do not toil in order to blossom forth. You will become calm and steadfast, and the effect in the end will be a great peace, both in your body and in your environment. It is God that worketh in you to will and to do. Man's mentality is not the place of thought. While the holy seed is unfolding, the work of creation begins in you, as at the beginning of all things. God's thought was your planet. When the life upsprings within you, it requires a place of action to manifest. That which you call imagination is the ground for the expression of God's thought. You will learn to keep the imagination pure and holy, free from the contamination of the senses, for that which is imagined afterwards becomes. Your scriptures unfold the importance of this when they describe false imaginings and speak of imagining mischief. A pure imagination is sometimes called genius. It is the mirror of God. Let the Christ have full control of this, that you may awake in his likeness. It will reveal God's meaning to your understanding. Your imagination is God's best gift. The heart and the imagination are closely related. They act and react. The heart and the imagination should be pure. This involves real effort, but you will be richly rewarded. You will have the thoughts of God, your mind will reflect them, and enriched and illumined by the eternal, you will be conscious of ever-fresh unfoldment. You will see, bear, and know only God. This lesson will unfold within you while you read. God is the only reality for all time. Lesson 18. Idea, the expressed image. Sunday was a day of great joy to me. The seventh day has a deep meaning for your planet. There is a correspondence to your Sunday with us, for the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord our God. Real prayer is a great attraction to us. Deep earnestness is the open door for its answer. It attracts by its magnetism the fullness of its need. In our last lesson I told you that the place of creation in the individual, the spiritual ground for the projection of thought from the divine innermost, was the imagination. Our next consideration is idea. First, the eternal mind. Secondly, the thought. Thirdly and lastly, the outcome of both is the idea. That which is to become manifest is the outermost plane of being. What are your ideas for the most part? Are they only and entirely the outcome of divine thought? Do you express the living Christ? I want to make clear to you the omnipotence of the divine man and the reality of the God idea. Try and stand with me as you read this and look out upon the earth plane. You will be filled with a longing desire to fulfill all the law, even as Jesus did. The end is from the beginning. God, the end of all separation. The great love will leave the 99 and bring in the remaining one, for all shall be in the kingdom of our Lord Christ. God's idea for your world and for you is perfection and nothing else. There are many who have passed from your earth still clinging to the false idea that matter is substance, the result of long ages of sense belief. Good spirits, often deeply reverent and noble, they still live on the material plane. It is to them real. They like to see their thoughts expressed on the material plane. This is a hindrance to them all. All ignorance is, and they cannot unfold to a higher experience. Give more time to quiet, that you may have the reflection of God upon the mirror of your imagination, that you too may become God's idea. For he has said, "Be ye holy." The growth of this perfect idea has become manifest to us. As you wait upon God, a great underwork is going on, and afterwards it beareth fruit. Close the door of your closet against the suggestion of the senses, that God's idea may manifest in your body. For if thine eyes be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. Full, rich lifeblood pulsates through the heart at one with God. This is the touch of healing, because the vitality of the whole universe is no longer separate, but delights to pour itself through its own God-given channels. Lesson 19. Heaven is within you. May I help you in this chapter by giving you some little experience of my own. I think you know that the passing from the earth plane is different for almost every individual, and is entirely what each one makes it. The birth into real life should be exactly like an awakening on a beautiful morning when the dawn is stealing over the land, touching everything with a purity and freshness belonging only to the first hours of the day. It is meant that we should open our eyes and see God everywhere, just this simple, humbly, all-familiar awakening into harmony and peace. God grant that you all may begin this experience where you are. Then you will enter the more fully into reality. Then that which is in part shall be done away. The consciousness of God is stealing over the earth, touching all things into purity and truth by its burning, glowing love. The fire descends and ascends as revealed to you in the symbolic sacrifice of Abel. All things are revealed to you in your Scripture. Man has made this book the medium of interpretation wherein God reveals wisdom. If you only knew, you could read God in every inspired work, but the Bible is your rich and hallowed treasure. In this ancient story you find the eternal truth of the two in one, the place of meeting, a place of sacrifice. Read carefully. I passed into the plane of realities gently. My transition was entirely unexpected by my friends. For this I thank God, as my dear ones were spared the cruel anticipation and dread of separation. This was a great help to me, as I soon found I could comfort and help them to something of my joy. This we can all do. What we cannot do is to rid you of false beliefs. This you must do for yourself. You can never lose your own, here or hereafter. More than that, you find that your own is greater, your circle wider, your loved ones infinitely more beautiful and even more familiar, for there is nothing strange in love. Rejoice, have no fear. Fear is the cloud that dims a spiritual vision. The angels came to say, "Fear not." Fear would keep you from all that is good. It is nothing more than an emanation from the material sense, and can be dispelled in an instant by the perfect love. Man is rising out of the fear of evil, the fear of God, the fear of man. The truth will set you free from all that separates man from God. The very heathen are seeking God by the lowliest worship, for in their worship is aspiration. I discovered this when freed from the body. I was slow to comprehend that I had passed through the experience called death to find myself a living and breathing soul, never so much alive as then. It was too much for me. I felt overwhelmed by the reality and the unlimited sense of thing slowly dawning upon me. Was it a delicious dream? You see, much of my false belief clung to me. I had expected a tremendous change in personality. I forgot that Jesus showed his hands and his feet, the same Jesus. How slow we are to believe. But when we are ready to learn, we forget all error and ignorance and enter quickly into truth, which is our own. Bless and thank God for the knowledge of the wholeness and unity of the race. I tell you, there is nothing lost into which God has breathed the breath of life. I thought also that I had not surely gone to heaven, for I did not seem to be in any new place. I had a new understanding, a fresh living consciousness of God. My eyes could see, the scales had fallen from my inner vision, and love seemed the very breath of being. It was too much to enter into. Then it was as though I slept. Oh, how can I tell of the awakening? Such an awakening will be yours too. The best and highest I had ever imagined was realized, the deepest longing of my nature satisfied, my purest thought answered. Spiritual truth were no longer in some far distance, but a part of my very self. This had always been. The only change that had come about was my unclouded consciousness of God. Now you see why I give you my personal experience, that you may know that heaven is indeed within. It was as if I had just begun real life. I was a child with everything to learn, and from then till now the unfoldment has never ceased. Every fresh visions, wider horizons, reaching after a rich satisfaction, to find that God is without beginning and without end. Love never rests in enjoyment of itself. Love must pour itself out, and a longing came to me to help those who were coming along the road I had traveled. Oh, to tell them something of the indwelling Christ. We love you all and long to show you what you possess. I want you to understand that there is no separation between us. We are interior inhabitants, but there are other interpenetrating states of existence. Of them I will not speak now. It is a great joy to be able to reach you with these thoughts. You need not wait for heaven. God, heaven, the whole of good is yours now. Christ is God incarnate, and dwells within your heart, so near that the feeblest whisper is heard. Aye, before you speak, he hears and answers. For he is behind all thought and speech. He also fills all space. Lesson 20. Growth, real and unreal. There is an atmosphere of rest and peace and much deep joy. An atmosphere of love is the one we can most easily enter. Everything is possible to the truly loving disciple. Love to God and man fulfills every law. Love is the key of all knowledge, wisdom, and power. Dwell deep in this love, and you will see as God sees, yet even this expression of God is imitated by the false or shadow self of the senses. You will learn to discriminate between inflation, expansion, and real growth from the center. Every good is closely imitated in the shadow world. Growth often means a great lack, a sense of poverty. It is never fulsomeness nor aggressiveness. The meek will he guide in judgment. The meek will he teach. Learn the greatness of humility. The little child is all unconscious of its lowliness, its growth. So also must the soul be when really emerging, free from the unreal, the outer and false sense of the senses. Love seeketh not her own. It should be nothing to you that others seem to manifest more of God. You and they may be at different stages of unfoldment. Be content to know that God is in the midst, and learn the secret of dwelling in friendly darkness, that your roots may go deep down, for during the time of hiddenness a great work is going on. The soul that seeks nourishment from the true self becomes strong. Learn from the parable of the house built on the sand, and let nothing hinder this deep work of the soul. Know that all is well, though no result is seen. Seek the silence, love all men, bless all. Thus do you make right conditions for growth. Unknown to you, there are outer conditions arranging themselves in harmony with the hidden work, and your whole future depends upon the true foundation being cleared of false building matter, wrong thinking and wrong action, self-aggrandizement, not true material. There is no other foundation than the Christ of God, the true self. That which is unreal must sooner or later be swept into nothingness. You are just where you are in order to do this work. Spirit is the only true substance, and our lessons will teach you how to build. God cannot fail if you are alive to Christ within and dead to all else. You may know the unreal by its self-seeking, by the desire for adulation, praise, and self-glory. Be not deceived. God is not mocked. End of lesson.